What is up, YouTube? JP here. So, I think it's been about a year. I think the last video we did on it was wiring in our own waterproof fuse system, but we are back to work on the 1968 Chevelle Malibu. We're going to be doing a Pro Tour suspension system. It's going to be the QA1. Kit runs about $4,500. Upper and lower control arms, all your rear end links, all fully adjustable, coil-overs, tubular control arms, and some anti-roll sway bars, heavier duty. So we're excited. Let me show you what the kit comes in. Multiple boxes here, so we're looking forward to bringing this to you guys. It's been a while, like I said. The Chevelle's already up on the rack. One thing to note is we actually got the Chevelle LS swap running. Again, somebody else kind of built this car and it was a nightmare. Nothing was really done right. So we were able to get it up and running. I do have a battery draw from the alternator. The power steering pump is dripping on the alternator. So that's something we're going to have to get a new alternator, get that cleaned up. And hopefully that'll take care of the rest of the battery draw. And we can actually get this thing idling smoothly and figure out all the ins and outs. We still got to wire in the dash, which is a big job. But most of the running wiring is done. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get the suspension kit started. Okay, so it's actually pretty simple for the rear. So what you're going to want to do, and we'll just do a time-lapse video because it's just too much by myself to keep moving this camera around, but you're going to go ahead and remove your rear wheels. You're going to lift your vehicle up however you're going to do it, whether it be on jacks or if you have a lift. You're going to let the axle sag, and then once the axle sags, I'm going to use my post jack, but you're going to support the rear differential, and you're only going to put ever so slight pressure on it. Once there's pressure on it, it'll take the tension off of your lower control arm bolts. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this bolt here, follow it up. You're going to have this bolt here, same thing on the other side. This bolt here, followed up, this bolt here. We're going to replace those first, but we're going to leave everything loose. Then we're going to move on to changing we'll go ahead and remove the shocks, the factory shocks here. Bolt at the bottom, 2 bolts at the top. I don't know if you can see that, my camera just went off. There we go. Same thing on this side, the bolt here. 2 bolts up there, 1, 2. We'll remove those. And we're going to let the axle sag as low as we can to get these coil springs out of here. So we're not going to need the coil springs now that we're using coilovers. So, and then once we do that, here's your upper control arm. Same thing. You got 1 bolt there, 1 bolt there, 1 bolt there, and 1 bolt there. So we're going to go ahead and remove those upper control arms as well. And then replace those with the ones that came in the kit that are adjustable. The only thing you need to be aware of is that you may have to do this in a slightly different process. As I go along, like I said, it'll be a time-lapse video, but as I go along, I'll make sure that if I run into something, I'll stop the video. We'll talk about it and then we'll move on. Okay, the left, should say driver's side lower control arm in the rear is out, and that's what it should look like. So what we're gonna do here, just kind of reading through the instructions, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the shock because those are getting replaced. I'm gonna leave the upper control arm in for now and the passenger side altogether. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this coil spring out since we're not using it anymore. So this will allow me, once I get that shock off, let me see it, there's the shock. Once we get the shock out of there, allow us to compress the spring, also lower the axle and let it sag to get that spring out and out of the way. That'll also make for easier access to, sorry, my flashlight's kind of blinding it out there, but there's the upper controller bolt there. Alright, there you guys go. The spring is out. Shock is off. You see our upper control arm is there. We're going to go ahead and put some tension back on this jack here. Lift that up so we can change that upper control arm while we're in here. And then we'll start reassembling on this side. Alright, so here we go. Lower control arm is off. There. Upper control arm is off from there to there. Shock is off, spring is out. So the instructions say to remove this bushing as it comes with a new bushing. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this. I gotta figure out if I have a puller because sometimes these things are in there. This one looks fairly new, so hopefully it's not in there too bad. But we'll get that bushing pulled out and move on. Here's the bushing. I ended up using a ball joint press tool. Worked perfectly for getting this thing out. You see up here, out, so it worked really good. Now I'll get the new bushing in. Alright, so here's our new bushing. The sleeve comes off, it'll go back in, and then once it's through the axle, the sleeve will go back on. So, alright you guys, bushing is in. Here's the new bushing. Just so you guys know, I ended up having to shave. You look, you're supposed to put this rubber sleeve on, but the way this pumpkin is, I'm sure it's an aftermarket pumpkin, newer vehicle, but I had to kind of shave that rubber boot. I don't know if you can see the little flat spot kind of by the dust there, but that way it would fit in there. So that's what it should look like. One other step for you guys. So you want to make sure your center bolt to center bolt is roughly the same as it was when it came out. These look like they're preset. I mean, these things are just about dead even. So you want to just double check to make sure. That way when you go in, you know the length is the same for that. So alright, just so you guys know, if you have the QA1, what are they? So here, these are actually going to go to your from your lower control arm bolt to your upper control arm bolt. I'll kind of just try to show you where they go. I have this exhaust, so it's going to be interesting. They put this exhaust already in. But basically, the lower control arm, the bolt that comes in the kit, will have a longer bolt that comes with this kit, because this is separate and there's different levels, but this is going to go here, like, I'm going to show that. So the bent part goes to this bolt, and it'll be a longer bolt, which will then go up to the bolt on the upper control arms that go through the frame into this area up here. So it'll kind of look a little bit something like, I'm going to hold it up there, but we'll hold it on the down level because this exhaust is in the way and it's kind of hard with the camera, but it'll go like that, and then that'll swing up around the exhaust to that bolt there, and there'll be a extended bolt for that as well. So make sure you use those bolts if you have this kit. If you don't have this kit, you can use the bolts that came with your control arms there and there. So as you can see here, this one came with extra long bolts. Alright, kind of had to fight it in there, but there's the upper control arm is in place, just the bolts are loose. This is that extended bolt. I have it halfway out. Here's the extended bolt as well. This is where the lower control arm will go. However, I have it out right now just for test fitting purposes, and as you can see, my issue is going to be this exhaust. So that is where, let's see if we can get in there. There you go. That is where that's going to hook, and then we'll put that extra long bolt. We'll push all the way through there. But I am hitting right here, so I am going to have to cut this exhaust out because it's welded. It's all welded. Lovely. So I'm going to hack it probably right here, or right at the oversize. Get these mufflers out of the way for now until we finish this, and then he'll have to find an exhaust guy to fix that. So alright you guys, so I was able just to take this exhaust bolt out there and lower this down enough to get this in. Obviously I'm still going to have to cut this and replace it. However, you see the bolts are in. I went ahead and just let this lower control arm hang. You're going to articulate it with, according to the instructions, the sway bar bolt holes towards the rear of the vehicle. So but that's that really long bolt. Now what we're going to move on to is the shock tower. Let's see if I can get in there and see it. Okay, those 3 bolts there, kind of the oval oblong one, plus those 2 bolts where the original shock was. Go ahead and push the bolts out. You're going to get a bracket in the kit. It's going to look like this. If you're looking at it, the driver's side, the slant is on the bottom side like that. So this is going to go up using the 2 original holes there from where the original shock mount was. And this third one, that's a stud, is going to go through that extra hole. Sorry, vice versa. Those two, the stud plus this one, are going to go through the original location. This one will go through the hole. Alright, so here's the bracket installed, just loosely. There we go. Better look at it. So where that third bolt is in the front, you're going to drill it. There's a hump right here where this will lay flat. And you're going to drill that right there. There you go. For that third bolt. So this bracket sits perfectly flush. It's a 5/16 drill bit. Good morning again. So it's been, I went to bed last night a little frustrated with the exhaust and everything. I had to go pick up some, I was out of Sawzall blades, so I had to go get blades. Had to get some anti-seize, just so you guys know, before you do the coil-overs, the threads have to be anti-seized. So let me show you. I got the exhaust cut out of here. This side's just still hanging, but this exhaust is cut, so you guys got a nice, good look now of what I'm doing. So there you go. Here's that support bracket there. So the next step is going to be getting the shock on. You'll have to decide which side you have. I have an issue. If you guys look close, whoever did this axle, this is welded, and it's not the original shape. So I'm supposed to use this hole and this hole for this bracket, but as you can see, if I use the top hole, the bottom hole is not in. If I use the bottom hole, then there's no top hole. These are supposed to line up. This has all been welded. You can see, so what I'm going to end up doing is using the bottom hole and just re-drilling the top one, since I have enough space there and clearance. Because if I drop it down to this one, it basically, if you look through there, it basically hangs off. So that's something you guys probably won't have to do, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to do. So this is what the driver's side bracket should look like. It'll kind of curve like this, and it'll follow that curve that's already there nicely. And then the bracket side will be on your right hand side. Alright, here you guys go. So I had to make sure I had some material in between this hole and this one. So I had to make this bracket just a hair straighter. Normally it's leaned over just a little bit. I don't think it's going to matter. Should be able to kind of get some of that adjustment out of there. But there is, you just can't see it under the washer, but there is about 1/4 inch of material between the old original hole and the new hole. So that way there's at least good clamp force all the way around. Unfortunately, that's what I had to do on this one. But next, you're going to take your bracket that looks like this. If you're staring at it, it should articulate up and to the right. That is going to line up with your holes here, and then it should be flush with the surface here, and you're going to have a bolt that you need to drill there according to the instructions. So I'll have a mounting bolt there, which will reinforce this all together. Alright, so it does stipulate in the instructions. Let's see if I can move you guys looking up at this from the bottom side. Alright, so So it does stipulate that you will need, before drilling any holes for this side mount bracket, you will need to install your shock mounts, which will go through this like so, whether you're going to go in the upper position or the lower position, depends on how low you want to go with the car. I'm going to start with the upper position, about 1 bolt down roughly, because we know we are going to lower this car. So I'm just dropping bolts here. Okay, so and the brackets do go on the downward position according to the photos. So you can see here, make sure you guys can see that. Hold on, there we go. There's downward or upward, but it goes downward. Like so. We get our 2 3/8 bolts through here. Like I said, I'm going to do the 1 and 2 there. We're going to have this side bracket that's going to go there, and then another bracket that's going to go there. So let's grab our washers and our nuts. All right. Bolts seem a little excessively long, but I'm guessing that's the next size down would have probably been too short, so. There we go. Okay, so this is, again, loosely fitted. This is what it should look like for you guys. Loosely fitted. Like I said, you see how excessively long these bolts are out the back. But that'll allow us to line that up once this is all clamped down. So I'll go ahead and tighten that down, and then we'll get to drilling that bolt. All bolts are in, nicely lined up. I got lucky that this actually still worked with the angle. Worked out perfect. So now you should have a nice little angle from here. It'll twist and go up to this downward kind of slided angle there. Alright, so I don't know if you guys can see this. So with the rear dampeners, we're going to go rear shock valving adjustment. So I want this thing to be pretty stable. It's got an LS swap, like I said, so it's going to be a little bit more modern power and stuff. So what I ended up doing is for the, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it says firm ride and improved handling. 6 to 12 clicks on the compression side, because ours has the double knobs. 6 to 12 rebound side, 8 to 14. So what I ended up doing is I went 10 and 12. So not quite full, because if you look here, full pretty much starts the aggressive handling from there forward. So I went 2 clicks less than full for the rears. We're going to start assembling the coil, the shocks themselves with the springs, so we'll show you how to do that here in a second. I'll try to keep this in your guys' view, sorry. So we're taking the rear shock for this one. It's going to be these guys here. So what you want to do is, looks like you're going to do the sleeve first with the, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a little tiny shoulder. Shoulder's facing up. This is the top. Goes all the way down to the bottom. Before you get to the bottom, however, about a quarter way down, get yourself your anti-seize, whatever kind you got. Give the threads some anti-seize here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but a little bit of anti-seize, then go ahead and roll this all the way down. Close to the bottom as you can get. There you go. Next is going to be your spring perch. Shoulder, the big knuckle here, shoulder up. Same thing all the way down to the bottom. Before you get there, add yourself a little bit more anti-seize. Alright, so get that the rest of the way down. And just till they touch, basically. Alright, so next instructions say, highly recommended to use the optional thrust bearing kit. For ease of adjustment, if the thrust bearing kit is used, coat both sides of the washer with Permatex anti-seize. So it looks like we got a bearing, washer, washer, bearing, washer, washer. So we're going to coat both sides of the washer, the anti-seize. A little messy, but it is what it is. Okay. 1, 2. Okay. Now, install the stainless steel spring seat washer. There. Followed by the bearing. There. And finally by the second washer. It says the one that came with your kit will not be needed because I had 2 of these since they already came with these. It doesn't say to lubricate this. However, I'm going to lubricate just one side that doesn't touch the actual coil spring. That way the bearings can stay lubricated. Like that. Try not to make a total mess of everything. There we go. That way, that'll sit like that, if you guys can see it. Rotate easily. This is going to be for our other shock, so we'll place it with the other side. Oh, actually, you know what? That's the other kit. Alright. A little bit too much stuff going on. Okay. If the thrust bearing kit is not used, coat one side of the stainless steel washer, shock, blah, blah. We did use it. Pull the piston rod out to fully extended. Alright, so I ended up having to turn these all the way back. It says it's a hint that says if these are turned all the way to their lowest setting, this pulls out easier, which made a huge difference. Okay, once the spring... Okay, pull the piston rod out, extended position. Slide the spring over the top, down. Okay, here we go. So, let's see if you guys can see what I'm doing. I know it's a little bright. Let's see where we're at. Okay, so it's pretty easy. Snake this collar in, get it around the shaft. There you go. Now what you're going to do is you're going to, for one, you want to make sure you're kind of articulated to the way it's going to mount in the car. I'm going to leave it loose. We're going to come over here together. I don't know if you can see this. I'm hoping you can. Yeah, okay. So, we're going to articulate it in a way that we know once it's in there, it can go that way, right there. So that should be basically not quite 90 degrees off, but pretty close. Now what we can do, try to hold this still. We're just going to bring the spring itself up to take off the slack. Let's see, taking up the slack until we get this thing to seat in its proper location. And we want just a little bit of spring tension, not a lot, but just enough to hold it in place. Like I'd say about, there we go. The biggest thing is, I want to make sure that this perch, okay, I just want to make sure you guys can see this, where the spring ends is not the same place where the opening of the spring head is, but you can see once you tighten that spring up, this should sit down in there flush. So again, we're going to double check our location before we go any further. This is going to be there, and this is going to be roughly there. So that's about the right articulation. Alright, for the lower shock bolt, there's going to be a separate pack of these little spacers right here. Those two spacers are going to go on the inside of this bracket. So it'll go bracket, spacer, shock, spacer, bracket, and then the washer nut, bolt nut. So look at that, guys. Here you go. Nice. Shock is mounted. Again, you can see the little spacers I had to put in. Spacer there, spacer there. So let's go ahead and readjust these. So we're gonna go to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. There you go. Spring is set. You can take up some more of that slack if you need to. Make sure there's no slop when it's down. And this will go up later. Let's go ahead and get this lower control arm in. Something to be aware of that I just found is on this bolt here, that bracket that goes from the lower control arm up to the upper, this shank is way too big. I think that's why they gave us so many thick washers. I didn't have one in there, and the bolt bottomed out before it tightened up. So I think it's meant to be two there, then the bracket, like so. Then another 2 washers, and then the nut. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. One side complete. Everything is tight. Just for your guys' information, I ended up having same thing as on this bolt. This bolt is too long without the spacers, so I ended up having to put a spacer in here. Don't know what happened to my other gold one, so I just did a double washer here. That way there's enough threads to actually tighten this down against the housing. So yeah, but as you can see, there's I went 2 on each side of that. That was perfect. Oh, well, there's my other bolt. I don't want to take that one out, so there's that other washer that I replaced. But here you guys go. Lower control arm is done. These 2 holes are going to be for our sway bar when we get to that point. Now we're going to start tearing down the passenger side. Passenger side is going to be exactly the same as the driver's side, just in reverse. Sorry, just in opposite direction. So that being said, what I want to do is pretty much just do a time lapse of that whole side, and then we'll move on to getting the sway bar figured out and installed. Look at this, look at this. Here we go, guys. All right. I ran into the same problem on this side as I did the other side because, as you can see, this has been cut and welded. So the bolt holes weren't exact. However, we were able to get it in there. Everything is in. The new bushing's in. The rubber sleeve. And rear adjuster with the long bolt. So the rear suspension is done. Now we'll move on to the rear sway bar, anti-roll bar. Alright, so the rear sway bar is actually really easy. So you'll get these blocks that come with the kit. You may have to put like a little pry bar in here to spread them open to slide them on. I had to do that with that side. They wouldn't go on. This side slid right on. But with the sway bar logo facing upwards, these should be on the upper end. And basically all we're going to do, this is going to go around the differential pumpkin. And they're going to bolt right here, here, come around the pumpkin and go there and there. And then there's these shims, and depending on how wide the car is, there's either a thick or thin shim, which will go between the bar, the lower control arm, and the side of these. So something to be aware of. Let's get this installed. Alright, this is how it's gonna look. So I have the thick shims. It says if necessary add the other shims. I don't necessarily think I'm gonna need them once I clamp this down, because this side barely fit the shim. This side has a gap, but this should flex because it's sprung steel. This side, same thing, barely fit the shim. And it's got a bigger gap here, so once this clamps, it should bring that over pretty easy. So the next thing is to make sure this thing is centered, truly centered. We're gonna measure from this block, from the end to the block, and then from the, it says from the first bend to the block here. So this is the first bend. So we wanna make sure this gap is the same as here to here before tightening it down. Well, you guys, there you go. Here is the rear Pro Tour suspension from QA1. Like I said, mine was a little more difficult than most of yours should be, just due to the previous installers. We'll get you a final look at this sway bar, and yeah, that's how it should look. I ended up having 11/16 on each side perfectly, and from the start of the bend there, where the crease starts, to there, a perfect 1/2 inch on both sides. So make sure you're centered, got good clearance. Just got to make sure that when the suspension goes down, we don't hit this gas tank. So if the gas tank hits, well, we're gonna have to figure that one out. So like I said, there's a lot of stuff that wasn't done right on this build. We're just trying to go through and fix it as we go. Hopefully get it running, idling good and running good enough to get it to paint and body. Let them get the body work and paint all finished up, and then we can help him along with the electrical and mechanical, whatever he's got left. But doing all the hard stuff for him. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. We still got the front end kit to install. Unfortunately, I gotta go to my other job in the next couple days, so the front end will to be continued.